Console, online. HPG connection, online. Educational module, online. All systems, nominal.
Hello, class, and welcome to On the Origin of Battlemechs Podcast, episode 60. I am your host, Brent Stewart McKee. My co-hosts today are...
I'm Joshua.
And I'm Chandler.
And today we are talking about the Striker, a 80-ton assault mech that has some interesting history surrounding it.
It's also got some interesting feet.
It's a frog. It has flipper feet.
They are quite interesting and cute.
Just like that AC-5.
So, the historical record shows that after the destruction of Stormverge Assembly Unlimited in 2867, less than 300 Strikers were listed as being in operational status. And at the same time, the historical note also hammers home the importance of this mech as currency. The SLDF had an interesting issue. Assault mechs were expensive, rare, and a status symbol. And so effectively all of the house assault mechs were owned by nobles or attached to prestigious units that the houses were not donating to the SLDF. For this reason, the Terran hegemony's representative strength in the SLDF created a feedback loop within the House Lords not committing units to it. This is what the Striker aimed to remedy. As a cost-effective assault mech, it was primarily requisitioned to house units serving inside the SLDF. This was not only to strengthen the SLDF as a whole, but also to ingratiate many of the House Lords and Mech Warriors to the SLDF with the generosity of a heavy machine to their unit, or assault to be more accurate. The Striker is attributed as one of the many factors that drove the SLDF recruitment up. And so we see currency. As time passed, the Striker was passed by and sent off to militias and garrison units as more powerful and formative designs took its place.
I'm not sure it qualifies as currency.
Like, not a hard currency, but like a social currency.
Because the Star League is basically using it to bribe important people in house militaries to join the SLDF.
Yeah, so basically they would either give this machine to a already integrated unit, upping the tonnage that the unit had, so increasing the overall strength, and who doesn't love getting extra tonnage, or they would give the unit to units as part of them joining. You know, like you join and you get this, and after a certain amount of time, I'm sure, well, it's been 20 years, we don't need that mech back when you retire.
Okay. Yeah. I guess it holds value, and it's used to exchange services. So I guess it kind of sneaks in as a currency, technically.
Yeah. The way I see the Striker is a lot of the house units that were donated to the SLDF at the beginning just didn't have assault mechs.
Mm-hmm.
Because the House Lords were like, yeah, no, you're not getting my, insert X assault mech here name. And so the SLDF was like, well, we need assault mechs. So they just gave Strikers to these units because they needed something.
I mean, also, you're not going to send off your heir with your very expensive assault mech to a brand new military unit that is not under your nation's command.
Exactly.
Unless they promise to give you a Striker for him to pilot.
And I mean, if you've got a Locust, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also saying that they were basically, hey, if you send us your unit to work to be part of the SLDF, we'll equip them with Strikers.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically exchanging men.
Service for,
equipment, yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
And they could get away with this because the Striker, while standard tech and a very respectable machine, was outclassed by what the SLDF was keeping for itself at this point.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, very
It's
much
the
so.
SLDF.
Yeah.
That's what they
They're
do.
dirty cheaters.
Cheaters, or they just bend the rules a little bit too much.
Are you saying that they are related to the clans?
Yes.
No, definitely not. We've said no such thing.
So this guy has the design quirks of being easy to maintain, which, as we all know, is a good thing.
Or is it?
So the first model is the STC-2C, seen in 2571. This guy has a movement profile of 4.6, and of course it is 80 tons. It's got a medium laser in the head, 2 medium lasers in the center torso, a PPC in the right torso, a large laser in the left torso, and an autocannon 5 in the left arm. It's got 15 single heat sinks, and yeah.
This sounds a lot like a 4/6 movement profile Mackie.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong, and if you look at the art, flipper feet aside, it does feel very similar to a Mackie. It looks almost to me like a mix of the Emperor and the Mackie.
Yeah.
Definitely got a chunky upper body.
Mm-hmm.
Never goes on leg days, though. Ever.
That just tells you how far technology's come, where an 80-ton mech has almost comparable firepower to the OG Mackie.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but I think its right arm does in fact have a hand of sorts, kind of like a industrial pincer, because that's what it looks like to me, but I am not 100% on that.
That does look like a grabber claw.
I was hoping the card game art would give me a bit more detail on it, but no, it's still kind of fuzz.
Yeah.
Let me pull up. I will continue digging.
Okay. Now, the cockpit does kind of jut out, kind of almost like a blade, but it doesn't really look like that from the art because it's in profile. The torso is kind of twisting at 45 degrees, and so you see the head kind of from one side, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's just kind of a visor sort of helmet thing going on.
I really want this mech to have some aquatic upgrades because it's got the flipper feet. It's kind of got a shark-shaped head. Like, this is the shark-shaped assault mech. This is the Shark Week assault mech.
Striker 2C from Sea Fox 1.
Yeah.
And going back to the Mackie thing, the prototype Mackie had an AC5, a PPC, and a large laser.
And was slower.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's got a PPC, a large laser, an AC5, and 3 medium lasers on top of that. Chandler's right. This is technology advancing. You've got an 80-ton mech that goes faster than the original Mackie, and it's carrying more of everything.
Mm-hmm. So the 2C has a battle value of 1488 and a point value of 36. And then we come to the 2S, which is seen in 2845. This guy has the same movement profile of 4/6. It's got a medium laser in the head, 2 medium lasers in the center torso, a PPC in the right torso, and a autocannon 10 in the left torso. It's got 15 single heat sinks and 2 tons of ammo for that autocannon.
Oh, so that right arm is a hand. It is a very boxy hand.
Okay.
It can fist a cuff.
Hand confirmed. But of course only with the one, because the other hand comes out, or ends in just a giant barrel.
Other hand is gun.
Mm-hmm. Even though on this model there aren't any actual weapons in the arms, so it'd be nice if it actually got a second hand.
I like the 2S for a single heatsink era. I like the replacement of the AC5 and the large laser for an AC10. It keeps it a little bit smoother on the heat curve.
Absolutely.
I mean, once you start getting double heatsinks, I don't think it's really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I love my autocannons.
I mean, I think we know I'm not really an assault mech guy, and the art. I'm having trouble getting past the artwork for one. This guy needed to spend a lot less time on the chest and a lot more time on leg day.
You're not wrong.
But overall, it's just another generic assault mech,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got the firepower of a heavy because it goes 4/6.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I will give it this: 75 and 80 tons have the same amount of spare tonnage with a standard engine going 4/6. So from that aspect, the Striker really is just a beefier heavy. That's what an 80-ton is, just like a 60-tonner is a slightly beefier medium.
Mm-hmm. Just a heavy punching up above its weight class.
Or I mean, if we're talking like prize fighter type thing, this guy is the guy he's a little overweight for the class he's supposed to be in and way underweight for the class he's actually in.
Yeah.
Like, he needs a Rocky montage and shed 5 tons.
Yeah. Just get a plastic bag over him and put him in a sweat lodge.
There you go.
So the 2S has a battle value of 1466 and a point value of 36. We then come to the final model, the 2D, seen in 3056. So a bit of a time jump there. This guy is going 4/6, just like its two brothers. It's got 2 medium pulse lasers in the center torso, an ER PPC in the right torso, a large laser in the left torso, and an autocannon 5 in the left arm. It's got 12 double heat sinks, and Yeah, it's an upgrade. It's interesting. It is not particularly inspired, in my opinion.
No, it's your classic Renaissance upgrade where it's like, well, we got these fancy new toys, let's just throw them on something. And the Striker just was the mech they had at hand.
Mm-hmm. I do think that the movement from the medium lasers to the 2 medium pulse lasers is a good move, because it kind of reinforces that this wants to be a bracket firer.
Yeah.
Of course, counter to that, we now have an ERPPC that has no minimum range. But, the AC5 has a minimum range.
Definitely, yeah.
So I'm noticing a little discrepancy here. Master Unit List only lists these 3.
But there is a 4th.
But Sarn is claiming that there's a 4th Liao version from the Dark Ages.
Really?
Yes.
Listed in Technical Readout 3150. Yep, the Striker STC-2L. Extremely easy to maintain, repair, and rebuild. The ancient Striker will always serve House Liao. This new incendiary variant packs plasma rifles and features heat-dissipating armor.
I'm going to go with a wild guess and say we don't have a loadout sheet, though.
Probably not.
Because I've noticed there's a number of mechs from 3150, the technical readout 3150, that don't have sheets or even like battle armor. So like the Orion C is from that, if I remember correctly, but it doesn't have a sheet. We just get a kind of a description where it's like, yeah, I think it's like the 3M, but it has clan tech and it has Pharaoh Lamb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or the Longinus C, where it's like, yeah, it's a Longinus, but clan tech. You're like, okay, but can I see it? Give me toy.
Yeah. Don't just tell me about toy. Let me play with toy.
You can't see me, but I have my hand out right now and I'm pointing at it. Give me toy. Put in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I've seen this a couple times with some minor models that do actually get a listing on Master Unit List, but sometimes they have a battle value and sometimes they don't. I apologize for missing this one, but I think you can all conceive how I missed it.
Yeah, like it doesn't have a BV or PV or anything.
Yeah. No, this is interesting, and I would like to try it because the plasma rifle is a very interesting direction that would not have occurred to me, but I think fits quite well.
It has to have a record sheet somewhere because Sarn is claiming it has 2 plasma rifles, but the TRO only mentions that it has plasma rifles. So it does say plural, but it doesn't say how many.
So with Sarna on mine, it's only saying plasma rifles. Are we looking at different Sarna pages? What?
Oh, you must have gone in there and edited it just now, Chandler.
Just on the fly.
Yep. I'm on the fly.
Yeah, no, interesting. Well, if any of our listeners have any information on it, we would love to see or hear from you.
Craig will not sell you out to what remains of the Word of Blake, we promise. Pinky swear.
Oh, also, another note I have is that apparently the German pronunciation of the name is Strumwind, which refers to heavy gale, which is a translation thing, which is a little interesting. So the 2D has a battle value of 1644 and a point value of 39.
Stormvanger, why did you have to get blown up?
So we then come to our pilot profiles, and we have one pilot today, the Saishao Curtis Mcelwen. Curtis served in the defense of planet Necromo for the Capellan Confederation from the Davian incursion in 3068. The planet fell despite their best efforts, but he refused to give up, and so Curtis and a handful of survivors disobeyed the recall order and went to ground to conduct a guerrilla operation on the occupying Davian forces. Soon after that, the planet was pillaged by the Word of Blake forces, and then had a mass driver weapon used on the planet, i.e. an asteroid. Our records show that Necromo has not reappeared on any official maps since the Jihad, so we assume that it is now a dead planet.
With aliens on, because it's obviously named after the Nostromo.
Wasn't there recently a worldwide event on Necromo?
I couldn't find any new the last information I was able to pull was from the Jihad, and I'm not entirely sure what map Sarna pulls all of its image data from, but the map they have lists it in black, which tends to mean that it's a dead planet.
Yeah, Necromo Nightmare as an adventure module.
Sounds like quite the nightmare.
I don't think I have that one though.
That is from the Jihad, so it's probably the events.
Yep.
Hopefully there is a striker.
Sounds really familiar. I feel like I've read through the Necromo Nightmare module, but I can't find it on my computer right now, so I don't know what I'm remembering.
It's but a fever dream.
Well, I mean, you might be just thinking of something to do with Samantha because, they also got an asteroid.
Oh no, I think Chandler's probably right. The only way I could have survived Necromo is if it was an out-of-body experience and I wasn't actually there when the asteroids landed.
Where were you when the asteroids landed? Not there. Rip in peace.
So, for our Battletech novel talk today, we are going to continue on with the Hour of the Wolf and all the glorious carnage that is happening in the middle of Canada right now.
Yeah, so Tara Campbell does not shoot Alaric Wolf in the back, despite the fact that they gave her a sun spider. Wasn't it a sun spider?
Sun Cobra.
Oh, I got really excited because it's like this is the Mech Warrior Online one, but I guess not.
Yeah, the Sun Spider is still non-canonical, unfortunately. It'd be great for it to become canon, because the Goliath Scorpions are off by themselves. You could easily do it.
True.
You hear me, CGL? I'm shaking my fist at you right now. You hear me? But no, Sun Spider. Little, I think it's a medium mech?
55 ton, if I'm remembering correctly.
Has either PPCs or gas rifles in the arms. Yeah.
You mean the Sun Cobra?
Was I saying Sun Spider? God dang it. I blame you for the CGL.
Yeah, so she watches Alaric's back and sees some action, and that's pretty sweet. If I'm remembering correctly, that happens on day 2, because day 3 we have the big old firestorm, which is a thing.
Yeah.
No, Firestorm's day 2.
Is it 2?
Yeah, it's day 2.
Yeah, because when they start pulling them out, like it's the end. It's like all day 2 and into the night is when they're finally pulling them out.
Right.
And then throughout the night, the Falcons are pushing the attack, and it's basically daybreak of day 3. What is it that Gandalf says on the third day? Look to the west.
Yeah.
And you'll see Wolf's Dragoons charging out of their dropships.
And Wolf in Exile.
Yeah. So the firestorm is pretty interesting. So the long and the short of what Malvena does is she seeds a giant area, like not only with combustible chemicals, but also like little stockpiles that are hidden, that creates kind of a 3-sided box that opens up to a Falcon position where they have good cover, and it just turns into a shooting gallery.
Well, no, they surround them completely in fire, and then they start lobbing artillery at them.
Yeah.
Wasn't one of the fronts had a stream or a body of water?
Nope.
I must be misremembering. My bad.
You're thinking of another firestorm.
Okay.
Yeah, because no, they're surrounded by the donut of fire.
Right.
It's a good descriptor.
You know, we were talking about earlier how elementals are coolest when they're emerging from an element, and one of the Clan Wolf warriors is like, we're gonna die if we stay here. I'm leading a charge. I don't care what my boss says. I'm leading a charge through the fire to kill this artillery. And some elementals hop on for the ride, and he's like,
You sure about that?
And they're like, our armor's flame resistant, and we're just going to die if we stay here, so we'll take our chances in the fire.
Yeah.
And they lose 2 of them, I think, going through the fire, but the others survive. And
they also lose a couple mechs, though, too. So
Yeah, their ammo cooks off.
And this fire is insanely hot, because before this attack against the artillery park, they talked about a few fast mechs, energy mechs, tried to escape back through the fire into Clan Wolf lines, and the all-energy ones overheated to the point where they shut down and the pilots cooked inside. And the ones with ammunition overheated to the point where their ammo cooked off and blew them up. That's friggin' hot.
Oh, yeah.
Because mechs are supposed to be able, like, Natasha Kerensky leads the Black Widows through a forest fire on her very first mission as the commander of the Black Widows.
Mm-hmm. This is not just a standard forest fire. This is like a seeded with chemicals and accelerants sort of fire. The kind of that, like we're talking napalm.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, the whole forest wasn't covered in napalm. Yes, it was an accelerated. She used accelerants to make it kick off rapidly and uniformly all the way around the wolves. But
Space Wizards did it.
Can you even overheat a mech in BattleTech tabletop with just fires? Like, it's not doing anything else but running?
If it stands in fire long enough, I think.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would depend on the machine and how it's synced, because a machine can only take up to 15 heat from external sources. So, assuming you have a machine that has 10 standard heat sinks, you're going to be gaining 5 heat a turn if you're just standing there. If you take any other action, it will only increase quicker from there.
Okay, so it is possible for mechs without double heat sinks, but we are into the territory where rules are not king in Battletech. Fluff is, fiction is.
And it makes sense that their heat sinks would eventually just fail because, they're just supposed to exchange heat with the outside air to sink it. But if the outside air is hotter than the inside air, it don't quite work no good.
Yeah.
That's not how HVAC works.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an insane scene. It's one of the best parts in the book, I think.
Absolutely.
It's a nice break from just the mech porn, because you're seeing warriors who don't have a way to fight back having to do something besides, oh, bad guy, pull the trigger, it goes boom. So I really liked this part. Again, it has elementals. Anytime you've got infantry in a book, I'm going to be happy.
I mean, it even had tanks, which was the artillery they were taking out.
Oh, and it had tanks who unfortunately died basically instantly when the fire lit off.
Yeah, well, I mean, tanks aren't really known for their heat sinking capabilities.
Yeah.
You know what would have been really nice for Clan Wolf in that situation? If they'd had a bunch of lambs, they could have just taken off and flown out.
But that's dishonorable.
Well, we do get that one chapter or part of a chapter from the aerospace pilot's perspective, and he just looks down and it's bad.
Just fire.
Yeah, it's just awful, and he eventually gets shot down, which is kind of neat because he goes down, and if I'm remembering correctly, it's either him or another mech warrior that punched out that gets picked up by It is him, okay, yeah. Gets picked up by some troopers on the ground, like actual guys slogging through. Yeah, slogging through the mud. And they're just like, yeah, no, we're picking up people because the Falcons are annihilating us.
Yeah, because that was going back to the last episode when we were talking about Malvina was making this a trial of annihilation. She had given orders that no Clan Wolf warriors were to be taken alive. And there's a scene where I think it's Galaxy Commander Chistu. She takes out a mech, and the mech warrior punches out, and as soon as he lands, he pulls out his pistol and his laser pistol and starts shooting at her. And she kills him, or her star mate kills him, and she's just pissed off at Malvina because the guy had no way to resist, but he was still out there shooting instead of, waiting to be taken as Isorla or
a bondsman or something.
But yeah, I loved that grizzled old Solama infantry warrior. Yeah. You're with us now. Until we get you back to the lines, grab your laser pistol because you're joining the infantry.
You're with us today.
Like, it's just like one of those cliche moments where, like the sergeant hands them a rifle. It's just like, you've been drafted.
Yep. Except he doesn't even get the aerospace pilot doesn't even get a rifle.
No, he's still got his sidearm, yeah.
I was waiting for him. So part of that scene, and I was in weapons platoon when I was in the Marine Corps. So we had the heavy machine guns, we had the mortars, and we had the basically SRMs. And I was the SRM gunner. But they had mortars in this scene. They had a little 2-man team with one mortar, and they run up and they set it down, and they start lobbing mortar rounds at some Jade Falcon infantry who are taking pot shots at the crater they're in.
Yeah.
And then one of the Solama infantry gets killed by that incoming fire. And I was waiting for the aerospace pilot to pick up his laser rifle and pitch in, but the scene moved away.
Yeah.
That was I loved that. I'm going to have to reread that part and write down those warriors' names because it was a lot of fun.
I mean, also like the aerospace pilot, because I think we see him a couple times beforehand. He was also a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before when we've been talking about Hour of the Wolf. I think Blaine's strongest points have always been his side characters. Definitely, he's really good at building these little characters off in, like the background. You're like, I really want to know about this guy, but we're never going to see you again. And like the little things.
Yeah, although that aerospace pilot is one of the first characters we see in the novel when Clan Wolf jumps in to the Zenith jump point, Nadir jump point.
I think it was the Nadir.
One of them. Yeah, because I think, because Falcon had a Nadir, I think, or Zenith. They had something.
So, because he was the Clan Wolf flight leader that we see during the space battle.
Mm-hmm. Another cool point talking about people on the ground, or closer to it than mech pilots at least, is when after the mechs and the infantry or elementals took out the artillery, and they march through that wall of fire, take out the artillery, turn around and march back through the wall of fire. And then have to, like, eventually go through the corridor that's carved out for them by the wolf forces that are outside. But the description of the elemental that when they emerge through the wall, Eddie's just like, it's just soot, black, like ash, and it's like there's no color. I thought was so cool.
Yeah, that was a great description of them, and it made me go, Catalyst and Blaine need to make that unit a special unit within Clan Wolf going forward, who are just painted in the flattest, sootiest black, and are especially honored for their role in that battle.
Yeah, like the paint that isn't actually paint, it's like ceramic that you have to bake on, and it absorbs all the light.
Vanta Black or whatever.
Yeah, Fanta Black, that's it.
The Mech Warrior has this great line when he comes out of the corridor, and General Vickers is there and waiting for everybody to get out, and he's like, we're the last ones. And she asks him a question or something, and he mentions, this is my 4th time through the wall of fire today. Just so bad. And the other bit, and I have to bring it up because it tickled my Dark Age heart. There are industrial mechs in this book.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Industrial mechs play a key role on day 2. So all you haters out there who think that industrial mechs were the worst part of the Dark Ages can... They saved half of Clan Wolf.
I mean, I don't think anybody thinks that they shouldn't exist, and logically they have to exist in this universe. I think a lot of people don't think they should be on the battlefield, which I disagree with. I think they should be on the battlefield for that very narrow sliver of time when you're retooling and getting everything back up to running. And that's cool, but we've moved on.
Yeah, and I, of course, I'm referring to the, I'm not sure if they're forestry mechs or if they were a specific firefighting mech mod, but yeah, they were...
I think they were forestry mechs that were used in general, and then there was also like a firefighter mech, the one that was like a construction model.
And they also just had regular bulldozers.
Yeah, like a construction ones for like digging the trench and all of
They had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, these industrial mechs fight their battle against the flames and open a narrow corridor for the trapped wolf forces to escape the fire, or the survivors.
Through the fire and the flames.
But speaking of a little bit of everything, so on the last day, we get some missing dance partners that we have been expecting for a little while, especially if you've been reading some of the other books, because we get the appearance of the heir to the Black Widow, we'll say, Anastasia Kerensky.
The Lost Princess.
Yeah. And we also get the Wolves in Exile and the Wolf's Dragon.
Yeah, now I haven't been keeping up on the novels up to Hour of the Wolf, but I know from listening to WNRP and chatting with you guys that there was a lot going on to bring bring Wolf's Dragoons to Terra.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember hearing anybody talk about Anastasia disappearing and going off to bring Clan Wolf in Exile.
It was mentioned.
It is mentioned once or twice, but it is also very much in the margins.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get any foreshadowing outside of, I think it's Children of Kerensky, about her going to them to negotiate terms.
Yeah. She's like, Alaric tells her where she needs to go, and she's like, are you sure? And he's like, yes, go, essentially.
And then she's like, are you sure? I don't want to miss Terra.
And he's like, you'll be back, don't worry.
He's like, go!
Well, I find it interesting because she was originally from Clan Wolf in Exile.
Yeah, which is one of his reasons for sending her.
Yeah, and then she left Clan Wolf in Exile during the Dark Ages because she felt they weren't doing enough to be clan and fulfill the clan's goal of achieving honor and taking Terra.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why she created the Steel Wolves and was actually the first... Okay. Depending on how you look at it, she was because you have the Smoke Jaguars were the first clan forces to invade Terra during the Jihad for Devlin Stone.
Well, land on Terra.
Technically, they were part of the invasion to take Terra from Word of Blake.
That's true. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head, were any of the other clans involved in the actual forces that took Terra?
I believe not. I believe the agreement was that they could come and help take Mars and fight the Word of Blake in orbit, but none of them were allowed to actually take part in the invasion itself. Because there were too many implications with the whole IlClan issue.
Politics shakes hands.
Yes. But the Fidelis, I mean, were they Smoke Jaguar? Do they count when they invade Terra for Devlin Stone to take it from Word of Blake? That's questionable. On the other hand, Anastasia Kerensky and her Steel Wolves were legitimately clan warriors invading Terra because they were trying to become the IlClan.
It's true, but they were also mercenaries. They
Yes.
were working for themselves, don't get me wrong.
And
I acknowledge that they were working for their own objective, but the Wolf Hunters were a mercenary unit.
Yeah. And they were driven off Terra by Tara Campbell and the Northwind Highlanders. And now Tara is Alaric's lackey, which is this weird. So now you have Anastasia coming back to take Terra under Alaric. Tara Campbell, the woman who stopped her, is now
Beside her.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird and has some Mirror Darkly stuff going on with the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So back to our question about whether the clans were involved in the liberation of Terra from the Blakists. They were, and you were right, Joshua. While they were part of the task forces that were supposed to land on Terra, conveniently enough, for one of the task forces, the only part that they were part of was a part that was supposed to land on Mars, which was Hell's Horses, Novacat, and Wolf in Exile. And then the other task force that was supposed to land on Terra, conveniently enough, the clans were part of the part that was supposed to land on the moon, which is Jade Falcon and Wolf. So
High Earth orbit.
yes, they didn't quite get there. Almost.
Yeah, it was really cool to watch Clan Wolf or Wolf in Exile and Dragoons charge out of their unpainted drop ships after they come in over the battlefield. That was another Malvina thing where she knows Alaric, but it's very superficial. Because she's like, ignore the drop ships. Alaric is trying to do one of his fancy sleights of hand. There's nothing in them. All of Clan Wolf is on the battlefield.
Yeah, the wording on the bid and everything was, master stroke, chef's kiss, perfect. And, it's like, no, he absolutely did the whole thing correctly. And it was brilliant because if it were anyone else, those dropships would have been a distraction. And if they had opened up with their weapons ports, that would have invalidated the trial. So it's just like, oh, that was well played.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they would have invalidated the trial because, or are you saying if the dropships would have invalidated the trial if they'd fired?
Yeah, like if the dropships had done a strafing run, that would have invalidated the trial.
Gotcha. Yeah. It was another one of those issues of scale for me, though, where when they come down and land and then they come charging out, like I'm picturing the terrain in my mind, and I'm kind of going back to MechWarrior 4 because there's a number of missions where dropships come in over you and they land on the other side of a ridge.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Blaine's described the field of battle, it's taking place over multiple square miles. Like, this is not a small front. This is a major battlefield. And dropships are big hunks of metal that take up a lot of room. They're deploying a massive amount of forces. It's going to be taking place across a fairly large bit of terrain, but everybody can apparently just see him coming and watching it happen. So yeah, like I said, that was probably my biggest problem with the book is I was having trouble keeping track of what scale are we playing at right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still the way it was described when a character could actually see the dragoons charging out was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing about the dragoons is how they were the point of the spear and then pulled back at the last second, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in future episodes because that has some implications with some scenes that come later.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that, Andrew? You were the one who pulled the Wolf Dragoons out of the fight. Yeah, and then that was one interesting interesting thing.
In your Warhammer, or not Warhammer, Marauder 2C.
And to chain off of the pulling the Dragoons back, I found it interesting how even though he had Anastasia bring in wolves in exile, and it sounds like there's a lot of hope that the wolves will be fully reunited back into one clan.
Mm-hmm.
Alaric still didn't want them to be the ones to deliver the killing blow. He still thinks of them as a separate entity, and it was Clan Wolf, his Clan Wolf, not Wolf in Exile, that needed to make the killing blow.
Yeah, well, that makes complete sense to me because he very much is a clanner. He was raised in the clan tradition. He wants that glory. He needs to be the one to create that legacy. So that totally makes sense to me that he would do that move.
Yeah, I just found it interesting that he doesn't consider Wolves in Exile to be Clan Wolf.
That's part of it, but I think also part of it is his obsession with symbols. Like, he is constantly like, okay, I need to, get this symbology going.
Mm-hmm.
So were there? So I've mentioned a lot of the moments that really stood out to me in that last big climactic trial. Were there any that grabbed you guys?
Let's see. One that stuck out to me, definitely. So we'd always been told how good Anastasia is as a pilot, but it's never been extremely shown. Like, I just recently finished reading, was it Bonfire Worlds, and she's in it, and she, is piloting mechs, and she's being a general battle because that's who she is. But you never get the impression that she's over the top, best of this generation of pilots kind of thing. You get that she's one of the best, but you never get that feeling that she is the best until this, when she comes out and is like, I'm gonna go hunt down Malvina Hazen and kill her finally. And whenever a mech gets in her way and you're in her point of view, the mech's gone instantly. She's like, oh yeah, there's that mech, blows off its arm and then blows off its head, and it's like, hey, we're gonna continue moving. And it's like,
she very much looks at something and it dies.
Yeah, she puts her PPCs right where she wants them.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that because while I have also read the Dark Age novels, and we do get a lot of seeing her be really awesome, so we get a lot of, show, don't tell. Lately, we have been getting a lot of tell of how awesome she is, so it was nice to see her be awesome again.
Yeah, because Chandler's going to make me reread Dark Ages because I definitely remember her being a bad mech warrior. I just can't remember any specifics scenes.
So I have the problem where I cherry picked a lot of my Dark Age novel reading because I didn't want to go through them all. So So
you started with Blood Avatar?
No. So the only time I've seen her in a Dark Age book was Bonfire of Worlds, where she's fated to lose. She has to lose for the plot to continue forward.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see her in when she's invading Terra and being a general battle against the Steel Wolves and stuff like that.
Proving Grounds trilogy is great. To me, it's the Warrior trilogy of the Dark Ages. And then the one I read most recently, I can't remember what it's called. It's something Warriors or Warriors something. But it's the one where she takes down Alaric, makes him her little and then lets him go.
Masters of War.
Masters of War, yes. I didn't like that one as much. Her characterization was a bit more cold than I remember it being.
Plot armory.
Yeah, but it was still a pretty fun book. The Proving Ground trilogy, you get a lot of her in there. Then the Blood of the Isle one, where she comes in and helps Tara Campbell defend the Isle of Skye. That one was great, and you get to see her be pretty bad there.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I know we're going on tangents, and I'm probably talking about stuff I talked about recently or in previous episodes, but talking about these Dark Ages books and the character arcs of Anastasia Kerensky and Tara Campbell and the way they start off as implacable enemies, battling across Northwind and Terra, and then begrudging allies to defend Skye against the Falcons, and then now apparently Tara's a little clanner. I would like to see that relationship grow and turn into something awesome in the IlClan era.
That would be very cool to see.
'Cause that's honestly one of the best plot lines that winds its way through the Dark Ages, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even the main plot line that actually carries through the entire Dark Ages.
So another moment before we wrap up on the Clan Jade Falcon and Clan Wolf trial is at the end when, both sides are at their breaking point. This is the point where it's going to end one way or another. I really liked how a bunch of the Falcons were like, you know what, I'm just done with this.
Yeah, they just set their battlemechs down back to back, propping each other up like a couple of weary soldiers who are done fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was not only a really good scene, and it was, the continuation of the commander we have seen, who's kind of like I'm not a grunt, but I'm I'm high enough on the brass that I'm brass, but low enough that I'm not a problem for Malvena, and I'm definitely on her not liked list.
The naughty list.
Just given the guy his the you know why you're here, right? He's like, he's like, it's because you're not an awful person and you don't like the Mongol doctrine. He's like, oh, okay, we're okay, cool. We can talk about that. Cool.
Yeah, and I really expect that commander who's like, yeah, you're here because you don't like Malvena's doctrines. I expect him, if he shows back up, I expect him to be in either the Sawcon position or a fairly important position inside of Jade Falcon going forward.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to be fair, there's not that many of them left, so. 127.
That is not a lot.
The other warrior, so that was a that scene where those battlemechs sit down back to back was very poignant. And I remember reading through that and being, Blaine is channeling his visits to the Civil War battlefields and his Civil War historian side right here.
I can see that.
And then the other one I thought was really cool with the Falcons going down one by one was Galaxy Commander Chistu and her final battle against, was it Andrew who takes her down?
It was...
Or Murata.
It was Brubaker.
It was Brubaker.
I think. Well, Brubaker was involved, I think. Because I'm pretty sure she's the one who takes down Brubaker.
Yeah, I thought she took down Brubaker, and then Andrew takes her down.
Yeah, and then Brubaker gives over command to Andrew, and then he does a amazing job. And then, of course, Elaric's the ultimate, and is like, nah, pull back.
But yeah, her fight and trying to take down Andrew, she's out of ammo, and she's trying to get in close and melee, and just refusing to give up the fight until the very end, even though this battle was forced by a woman she hates. And then, of course, Andrew Kroll gets to say he took down Galaxy Commander Chistu.
I really like that scene because when you see it from Andrew's point of view, he's like, I am not in control of this situation right now, but I'm going to try to keep as much control as I can get. And then when you see it from Stephanie's point of view, she's like, I have no control over this situation right now. Which is not something you see usually in battle technology. Usually you see one of the people and you're like, I am in control.
Yeah.
I am playing the fiddle, and both of them are like, I don't know what's going on right now. I'm just going to shoot you and hope I kill you before you kill me.
Probably more realistic to real life.
Exactly, yeah.
And again, it's what Chandler keeps mentioning, Blaine's side characters and his little bits with the characters who aren't the focus are some of his best work.
Agreed.
But yeah.
Yeah, I did also like her little monologue about, should I hit my recovery beacon? The whole back and forth thing. I thought that was a really cool characterization of her as well.
I don't remember that part.
So she gets taken down, and I think she's bleeding quite badly, if I'm remembering correctly. And she's, debating whether or not to hit her recovery beacon, because she's like, well, if the wolves get the win, then they might take me. Who knows what's happening? And, also, who knows if Hazen has some, order for if I get recovered, I get taken out or sort of thing. It's just this kind of... I liked it.
It's this kind of... I liked it.
Okay. I think I kind of glossed over that because she passes out before she makes a decision, right?
I think she like slaps it as she's passing out.
Yeah. It's at the very end of her being awake, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the wolves wipe the floor with what remains of the falcons after the wolves in exile and dragoons, kick their butts in. And then Anastasia and Malvina have round 2, Electric Boogaloo, and Anastasia plays Malvina like a fiddle.
Yeah.
I don't think Anastasia's ever lost a fight against her.
Yeah, which I think is kind of the point in that fight. Is Anastasia's just like, yeah, no, I will win.
Mm-hmm.
Say hi to your brother Alex for me.
Yeah, exact opposite of the fight between Andrew and Stephanie, where one of them clearly has the control.
Yeah.
And like she even limps fakes the limp on her battle mech. That was a really nice touch.
Oh yeah.
She's like, oh yeah, I'm totally wounded. Come finish me. Nope, psych.
Yeah, Anastasia was an okay character for me in this, largely because she doesn't get a lot of screen time, and what she does get is her focused on killing Malvina.
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't understand where her burning hatred and desire to kill Malvina comes from, because I don't remember it from the Isle of Skye book, but I might just have to reread that.
I just always took it as kind of like the objective, like, oh, you're just evil and I need to get rid of you.
But it feels personal.
That's fair. I don't know why it would be personal, but...
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm apparently going to have to reread Isle of Skye because I don't remember why it would be personal for Anastasia.
I always got the impression that Malvina made it personal, and so Anastasia's like, okay, it will be personal. Kind of feel from it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where she doesn't really have a personal game in the fight, but then Malvina's like, it will be personal. And Anastasia's like, yeah, okay. You want to play that game? We'll play that game.
Anastasia's just like, you keep coming at me, I guess it's personal.
For me, what would make the most sense to me is Anastasia's always been a glory hound.
Mm-hmm.
She's been tempered over time throughout the Dark Ages from being an absolute hothead of hunting for glory. But to be the one to kill Malvina Hazen, to have that glory as the woman who killed the Genghis Khan, I can see that being the motivation.
Yeah, who doesn't want to be the knight who slayed the monster?
Right? Which is really unfortunate that she gets that taken away from her.
In a way.
Yeah.
But we will talk more about that in the coming episodes.
All right, fine.
No spoilers, come on. It's not like we're totally spoiling this for anyone who hasn't read it.
So, for our data dive today, we are going to look at House Davian once again with Part 5 and Content Warning Suicide. Renard's family. When last we spoke of the Davian line, I spoke of Renard passing from the Black Marsh fever he acquired on his deployment earlier in life. The disease was not the only keepsake Renard took home with him from the front, for from the planet Lee he married a daughter of a large landholder, Gina Remux. This caused a bit of a political scandal, as the heir to the throne of New Avalon had married the daughter of a farmer, and those with superstitious inclinations said that it was a bad sign of things to come. But as we all know, with much more history to look back upon and judge, that the Davian line is not cursed or divine. They are simply a family that produces noble idealists and power-hungry narcissists, but in an ever-changing dance that always mirrored the previous dance, but is different enough to catch the rest of the inner sphere off guard, for better or worse. But Renard held on to his convictions and vows with Jean, and they lived a happy life together. They had 3 children, Etienne, Paul, and Maria. Etienne was next in line for the throne when Renard passed, the swing of the Davian pendulum. Despite being early days for the Federated Sons, and having little formal training for the next president of New Avalon, it was never in question that Etienne would succeed his father. The training he did receive was that in the service of the FPF, and served along the Capellan front. There, he took an injury during an action that would earn him the presidential citation for valor. The injury would force Etienne to be hospitalized for a year of recovery. Many personal accounts from the individuals close to Etienne before and after have attested that this recovery had a permanent effect on who he was as a person. In 2371, Etienne was 33 years old and took the reins of power. For the first few months, by all appearances, he was an ideal leader, following in the footsteps of his father and great-uncles. He signed a truce along the Capellan front, admitted 3 new worlds to the Federated Sons, and created diplomatic inroads with the Draconis Combine. But more than that, and the precedent of his predecessors, Etten appeared to enjoy the judicial work that was so important to the operations of the Federated Sun. And so it was no wonder that in the early days of his rule, he was loved by the people. As months turned to years, the stability of Etten began to erode. It started with little things, like losing his temper on errors in protocol. But as time passed, the errors could and did result in members of the court being assaulted for mistakes. Then, one day, during a fencing match, Etten flew into a rage and killed one of his closest friends. It was at this time that enough of the government officials and nobility had recognized that Etten's mood could shift in a matter of hours, that many in the government began to suggest that he should delegate some of his responsibilities. By 2373, the Crucis Pact was amended to create the Board of Magistrates in order to divest the responsibilities that would have previously fallen solely to the President of the Federated Sons. While this happened during Etten's rule, this was a necessary step, as the Federated Sons was only growing and the office of the President could only be held by a single individual. As the new board was formed and grew, it took more and more of the President's responsibilities, and as far as Etten was concerned, that was fine, as it allowed him to indulge in his personal pursuits of luxury. This had the effect of removing a destabilizing element from the governmental process, but it also meant that the High Council was unable to conduct any business, as the procedure required the official sanction of the president or his representative. Now, many of you might be thinking, why did Etten not just appoint a representative and spend his time in the lap of luxury? Well, whoever he did bother to appoint as a representative, he would soon find issue with them and have them executed for any number of imagined slights. As you can see, after the first few, this was not a position that anyone really applied for.
So people think that the Federated Sons are British. Like, that's kind of the stereotype we give them. But they're really supposed to be pseudo-French.
Oh, absolutely. Like, there is a lot of French in their DNA.
And we are literally seeing the downsides of having French royal DNA. Because the French kings weren't known for their stability.
Everyone thinks Liao are the crazy ones. Davian did it first.
Davian's just better at hiding it.
That's fair.
Davian got better PR.
They do. They got that flag.
From the outside of New Avalon, the population looked to the leaders of the planet to help control their prime minister and his now destructive actions. But the precedent of 60 years of inaction and vacillation prevented anyone from creating a unified opposition to Etten. Any figure that could have applied personal pressure to him was gone by this point. His mother had passed away before his father. Etten had divorced his wife in 2376 with no reason given. Paul, his brother, was considered to be a sickly recluse with no ambitions or drive, and Maria, who was still in her early 20s, had been posted to a military frontier unit due to Etten's envy of her popularity, and so no figurehead was available to champion as a replacement. For the next 2 years, the situation continued to devolve as Etten continued to abuse his power and neglect his responsibilities. So it is unsurprising that several assassination plots and plans for a mass secession from the Federated Sons were started. All the plans were foiled by individuals who would sell out the idea of a better tomorrow for personal power and wealth. It was in this time that Etten would abuse his power to the most horrifying effect. He ordered mass executions of people for minor or imagined things, all the while career government officials and bureaucrats struggled to hold everything together as sycophants indulged the president and prime minister's every whim. Etten's rule would end in 2378 with a failed assassination attempt. While in his office, his bodyguards killed the would-be assassin who had been a childhood friend, and they had seen action together in the Lee campaign. In the shock of the situation, Etten stood and stared at the now lifeless body of his lifelong friend for several minutes. He then scooped up the knife and proclaimed, "If Jeremiah Monroe hated me that much, then no one will hate me anymore," and proceeded to stab himself in the heart before his protective services could stop him, killing himself instantly.
One would hope that the protective services didn't try too hard.
Oh no, Mr. President. No. Don't do that. No.
Etten's medical records show that he suffered from a crippling depression and anxiety stemming from the injury injuries and unresolved PTSD from his military actions and hospitalization. Not only were they not properly diagnosed, but let alone treated, so we can see how his mental status continued to degrade over time. He alienated himself and drove all who cared for him away. So, is it any wonder that things devolved the way they did? This is where we will leave off today, with a power vacuum left by the death of a tyrant almost beyond empathy.
Almost. Keyword. That's
Almost.
the difference between Liao insanity and Davian insanity. The Davian insanity, at least most of the time, you can feel sorry for the poor people. Where like Mcelwen and Liao, you're like, you're just crazy.
You capital C crazy.
Capital C, hang on. Capital C crazy. Capellan, Confederation, those are capital C's. Coincidence? I think not.
Our sources for today are Sarna, Battletech Battlemech Manual, Master Unit List, TRO 3058 Unabridged, Record Sheets 3058 Unabridged, Jihad Secrets, Error Report 3145, and House Davian Sourcebook, and Hour of the Wolf.
Oh, and TRO 3145. Did we mention that one?
I did not. Thank you. This podcast is made possible by our supporters on patreon.com/on the Origin of Battlemechs, link in the description. Our social media on Twitter is at Origin of Mechs. We also have a community Discord, the Armory of Ouroboros, link in the description. You can email us at ontheoriginofbattlemechs@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your platform of consumption, tell your friends about us, and share on your community platform of choice. Special thanks to my friend Laura for the intro and outro. Class dismissed. Everybody have a great day.
Peace out, mech warriors.
Stay safe out there.
Module complete. System standby. Would you like to load the next module?